All right, let's go straight to the anti-immigration rally on the weekend where One Nation leader Pauline Hanson, aside from being heckled by some counter-protesters, was praised for her political positioning on the matter. Critics, though, have warned that Hanson's theatrics will ensure the party remains one of protest rather than a party on the path to government, and that newly minted independent Barnaby Joyce risks political irrelevance if he joins her. Here to talk through some of the issues, Senior Fellow at the Menzies Research Centre, Nick Cater, and Page Research CEO, Gerard Holland. Gents, welcome. Nick, what's happening here around the edges of Pauline Hanson here to one side, obviously, and her long-standing push against the high rate of immigration? There are some moderates, some left-wing liberals who are saying, look, we had to roll over on net zero, we don't like that, and if we're to do anything about cutting immigration, over my dead body. Where do you think this is headed?
Well, I think I know where it has to head if the Liberal Party want to be faintly electable at the next election, and that has to be a strong focus on numbers, number one, and then the character of migrants, number two. I got the impression Sussan Ley is going towards that point from her interview yesterday on Sky. She's talking about cutting numbers, well, she has to. And it's not just the announced numbers, of course, it's things like student visas, graduate visas, family reunion visas, all these ones that just bloat out the numbers. She has to do that. But also, as she's talking about stronger character tests, stronger citizenship tests, obviously we need those. Pauline Hanson is not helping, incidentally, I don't think, with that burqa stunt last week. The burqa is not the main issue for most people. For most people in Australia, it's right now a question of numbers, which means they can't find houses. Everything becomes more expensive. Things are more difficult because of that.
I agree with you. It's not the main issue, Nick, and it certainly was a stunt. I'm not saying it wasn't a stunt. The Senate is full of stunts. But I do think it is a totemic issue for people because just like men in women's bathrooms, it's not the blokes who are under siege from women going into your bathrooms. Women look at the burqa and see dehumanisation, a loss of rights for women, and it creeps into societies. And you don't need to go to the Middle East to see it because it's mostly banned in a lot of Middle Eastern countries. You see it on the streets of London and you see a change in your society. So your point there about not just the numbers of people coming, but the culture changes that we are importing. I think the burqa speaks to that culture change, and the fact that we couldn't even have a debate about it in our parliament, yet a month ago in Portugal they did, and they banned it, says that something's pretty rotten in Canberra.
You're right, Peter. That is an issue. It's an important issue, but this is a question of strategy, and you'd know that better than anybody, having won a landslide election along with Tony Abbott. It's which hill you fight on at which time. And I just know that while some people are very energised on this issue, a lot of others find it very, frankly insulting. I was speaking to somebody in the Muslim community today who's a very good fellow. He's a top bloke, and he says it just stereotypes Muslims. It makes it look hostile to us. So why do you go there? Everybody in Australia, wherever they come from, or certainly in Sydney, is concerned about house prices and the effect on that of migrants right now. That is an issue which unifies the population.
I know, but the problem is you've got the 16 Muslim organisations wanting to change the definition of terror attack to take out any reference to Islamic law now, or Islamic ideology or Islamic religion in any way, shape or form. I'll bring you in, Gerard, on this because I think, great that there's a good Muslim saying this stereotypes us and I don't like it. Well, first of all, he's not going to have to wear a burqa. But secondly, we need the good Muslims, Nick, to speak up loudly and more often and not allow their religion to be dominated by the various organisations and the crazy imams in these mosques on Friday to spread their hate. We need more of the good Muslims to say, join the team or get out of Australia, Gerard.
Well, I agree with Nick that numbers is probably the main issue right now. But to your point, Peter, we have to be able to talk about cultural fit. The idea that we are just interchangeable economic units and it doesn't matter where we come from. You come to Australia, within 6 months, you sort of download Australian values and you become westernised, that just doesn't bear out in reality. And when you are thinking about how do we maintain social cohesion, how do we make sure that all of our women, our children, everyone in the community is held to the same standard and has the same rights to protections, you have to talk about some of these cultural issues, and they're uncomfortable. But ultimately, we're talking about the future of our country, the character of our nation. And if we can't have that conversation in somewhere like the Senate or even on a program like this, then heaven help us if that is left out into the streets to be sorted out. And I think this is when you look at Western nations around the world and this real surge in populism. I think it's because elites and those who have the kind of platforms that we enjoy, they haven't been willing to have this conversation. And I think we need to start it. I think it's something Australians do want to talk about. They do want to talk about, well, what makes an Australian? Is it just a passport, or is there something deeper there that we haven't really been able to articulate that I think we might need to start beginning to articulate and talk about again?
Thank you, gentlemen. I'll have to leave it there.